and let's talk about the Trump's art of the steal. And I mean steel like STEEL, like the steel industry is what I'm talking about here. And there's a great picture on my screen if you're watching of Trump on stage with a big sign that says American jobs, American steel. He's got all the steel workers behind him wearing their hard hats and their, their vests. And Trump's up there dancing with them. And it makes for a great photo op. But really, what's going on here? Now, first of all, Trump is raising tariffs on steel from 25% to 50%. And that's crazy. Okay. Now, by the way, meanwhile, steel tariffs used to be dramatically lower, but Biden raised them to 25%. Targeted steel tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and I think China too, 25%. Biden did that. Now Trump's taking it from 25 to 50%. Now, never mind the fact that Democrats will defend Biden tariffs, but be angry with Trump tariffs, which I think is hypocrisy. But this, again, is nonsense, okay? And this is really just a political strategy. I mean, not only did he say we're going to jack up the tariffs, supposedly meaning that now competitive steel from overseas is going to be a lot more expensive, and therefore people think they're going to be buying a lot more American steel, which protects the jobs of the steel workers. But Trump is also promising them a $5,000 bonus and no layoffs, which, by the way, I don't know how a president of the United States can make such promises. But never mind the fact that, do you think he really cares about steel workers? Really? Do you think he really cares about the steel industry? Well, maybe to a certain degree as a real estate guy building these, skyscrapers, they use steel. But really, what is Trump really trying to do here? Now, keep in mind also, just as an aside, when steel is tariffed, the last time that happened, when Biden raised the tariffs on steel to 25%, you would think that American steel domestic manufacturers would be overjoyed, thinking, oh, my competitors are going to be a lot more expensive. Now I'll be less expensive and I'll be able to get a lot more business. But domestic steel manufacturers raise their price because their competitors raise their price. So already, no matter if you're buying the steel from American steel companies or from international providers, we're paying more. And you might think, oh, it's just steel. I mean, I don't need steel. I mean, if I was building a skyscraper like a Trump Tower, I might need steel. But think of it this way. The steel that is imported is used for, as components, as parts for all kinds of products that are made here in America. So now the input of the cost of manufactured goods is going up. The prices are going up. And who's paying that? You and me. So we're the ones getting screwed here. But people still defend it. They're like, well, we need steel manufacturing in America. This is a national security issue. And again, this is the shiny object that's meant to distract us. First of all, roughly speaking, about 3/4 of the steel in the United States is coming from U.S. manufacturers. 25% is coming from overseas. All right, so already America is dominant in the steel industry. But on top of that, you're going to when tariffs are raised on imported steel, you might say, well, we're protecting the jobs of those American steel workers. Well, you are to a degree, but really not very many workers are really involved here, because besides the fact that the steel companies are going to raise their price here in America, which is going to give them more money to be able to hold on to more jobs. But at the same time, the steel industry is not like a Henry Ford assembly line, or like Lucille Ball on an assembly line, or Laverne and Shirley at the Bottley on an assembly line, where it's so human oriented. The steel manufacturing business is dramatically automated. And so the amount of jobs relative to the amount of steel produced is really kind of small. But the steel that is being used in products, whether they're for air conditioners or auto parts or what have you, that's going to go up, making US companies less competitive. And as a result, we're going to see way more job loss in other ancillary industries because of steel tariffs than we would see steel worker layoffs without doing the tariffs. So again, it's from an economic perspective, it makes no sense. And that's what just drives me bananas with all this is why in the hell is this going on? And then you see different factions in America supporting it or upset about it or defending tariffs when Democrats do it, but upset with tariffs when politicians do it. And I know that they're economic nonsense. Nearly any reputable economist in America knows that tariffs are nonsense. We learned our lesson with Smoot-Hawley in the early 30s, which led to the Great Depression when trade radically was reduced. So why is Trump doing this? It's politics. I mean, this is not an economic strategy. This is a political strategy. He wants to build strong loyalty with this base of workers. Okay, first you're getting the blue collar workers, which traditionally used to be Democrat. Now they're coming to Republican. You're getting blue collar workers in Pennsylvania, right? What's special about Pennsylvania? It's a swing state. Okay, so and then a lot of the other, steel manufacturing, you kind of associate that with a lot of the Midwest, a lot of that Rust Belt, which is where, Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania are all swing states. So this is just an attempt to lock in an electoral college strategy for him and future Republicans or future MAGAs, or maybe even future Trumps that get into the White House. So while he's doing all that, keep your eye on what his family is doing, because this makes no sense. This just creates, MAGA loves it. MAGA thinks you're doing the right thing for America. Finally, America first. People that are smart enough to see through this know that it's nonsense. And then crazy partisan people think the tariffs are bad when Team Red does it, but they're good when Team Blue does it, which further muddies the waters on all of this. So keep your eye on all of this. I mean, ultimately, watch what the deals are that his kids are making, because Eric Trump was recently, I think, out in one of the Middle Eastern nations along the Persian Gulf. Was it Qatar or Qatar? Was it UAE? It was one of those. And they're working on, $1 billion Trump towers, like in Vietnam and China and everywhere. I mean, so that's the strategy for Trump, in my opinion. And again, I challenge you if you prove me wrong here. But because I know that when you look at this using reason, when you look at this using logic, using the economics education that we've all been taught, and witnessing the reality in the real world, like Smoot-Hawley tariffs and how they've been so terrible for America, we know that this is a stupid economic policy. Yet he pursues it. And you might say, well, because Trump's an idiot. Okay, well, Trump definitely at times can be an idiot, but don't underestimate this guy. I mean, he went to the Wharton School of Business. I mean, so which is a Ivy League school, got his MBA there. But even saying that, I mean, the guy's made a lot of money, and he does it in very shrewd, calculated, and in fact, in a lot of ways, as a con man. And I got to say this, and I should have kicked off the podcast with this. This is the one big thing for me that has made everything sort of make sense, is that once I fully accepted Trump as a con man, then everything sort of in its own weird way made sense. You realize that he was trying to fool people, mislead people, divert people, deflect from people, that he wasn't straightforward, and he really has no political philosophy. His stuff is all over the place. His ideas violate not only traditional Republican political positions, but frankly, violate common sense, violate history that we've learned previously of things that work and don't work. but yet he pushes this. And I think it's because he's a con man and he doesn't care about he doesn't care about the result of all this other than the fact that it keeps him in power. And by staying in power, he then has the opportunity to enhance the wealth of the Trump family, the Trump empire, and of his movement by remaining in power so his minions, particularly his children, can do all these deals.